Good evening. Oh, that one goes loud. Sorry. Good evening and welcome to tonight's study session. Tonight we're going to be looking at installing a broadband in Yukon by Blue Peak. And so I'll turn it over to Ms. Crutchmar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to introduce Randy Butler and Desi to come up and give the presentation from Blue Peak. They are interested in doing broadband in Yukon. This would be another franchise, just like AT&T and Cox. So
Correct. Yeah, it's good to see you again.
good to see
Ms.
you.
City Manager and Council, Mayor, appreciate your time this evening. So I don't know how much you know about Blue Peak. We've actually been expanding rapidly across the state of Oklahoma. Roots are in South Dakota. Started there in Sioux Falls and parts of Minnesota a year ago, February, so February of 2021. GI Partners, private equity firm out of New York, purchased that asset. They said, great asset, great business model, go expand. At that point, I joined the firm and had been working with our CEO and COO for 20, 25 years. I'm a Perry, Oklahoma native, was born there, graduated from Oklahoma State, and have been in telecom ever since. And so they called and said, hey, we're expanding the footprint. And so we were rapidly started last summer, building all throughout Wyoming and North Dakota, currently under construction in Cheyenne, Casper, Laramie, Sheridan and Rock Springs, Wyoming, and then Grand Forks, North Dakota, and then South Dakota's Vermilion and expansion into Sioux Falls. But we quickly found out around August that the ground's going to freeze there pretty quick in the fall. So we were scratching our heads. So what about Oklahoma? Build year-round, construct year-round, and we looked, and Oklahoma ranked 46th in the nation from a broadband perspective. And Rich Fish and Mike Carey, they're small town guys like me. They grew up in Superior, Nebraska and Lexington, Nebraska, about the same size, a little bit smaller than Perry. And we said, yeah, we've been doing this for 30 years. Let's go actually build into parts of the states that we grew up in. So we kicked off a rapid expansion across not only the Dakotas and Wyoming, but into Oklahoma. First started in Perry, in Stillwater, and then Enid. Perry's actually completed in Stillwater and Enid and have about 2,000 homes built. Parts of those started breaking ground and actually doing construction there in November. And then the calls started rolling in. We would get calls from Tonkawa and Blackwell and Bartlesville and a number of other markets across the state. And we said, you know what, let's just jump in full force. So right now, we're actually committed to around $400 million of private equity funds to build here in the state of Oklahoma. We're actually, this morning, Randy and I were in Shawnee. We broke ground in Shawnee. We broke ground in Bartlesville about 6 weeks ago. Blackwell and Tonkawa are under construction. Perry is completed. We broke ground in Lawton a month ago or so, about a month ago. Altus is breaking ground. And this Thursday, we're actually in Clinton and Elk City, kicking off construction there. So all of this effort, we hire Mears Construction, which is part of the Quanta companies. Quanta is a global worldwide company. We use Quanta for the construction, and we use HBK for the civil engineering work. They do all of our civil designs and work with the city. We have pole attachment agreements with OG&E and PSO across the state, as well as a number of the co-op power companies. So where utilities are above ground and on poles, we'll use PSO or G&E, whoever. Where utilities are underground, we'll submit underground permits to staff public works here within the city, and we go. So that's a little bit about us, but I would like to, kind of walk through, I think that was almost the first, few slides. A little bit about the network that we will be deploying. It is true fiber to the home. It's not fiber to a neighborhood. It's not fiber to a commercial district. It's fiber to every home and business. We've anticipated in our initial high-level design for Yukon that'd be about 10,700 rooftops, residential and commercial rooftops within the city. Oh, there we go. Residential and commercial rooftops in the city. What we'll do is build in public right-of-way, and as subscribers come on board, we'll we'll break up, and I think one of the slides down it further breaks it up into how many distribution areas. So basically, a distribution area will cover about 450 rooftops. So out of 10,700, we're talking, 15 distribution areas. As each distribution area neighborhood is built, those houses would come online and have the ability to start purchasing service, subscribing to service. So it's not, we're gonna build over the next 3 years and then flip the switch. The switch will be flipped as residences and neighborhoods come on board. True fiber to the home is, I don't know how familiar you are with broadband, but fiber is true symmetrical service. Our minimum speed is 1 gig for $50 a month. So that's 1 gig download and 1 gig upload. I urge each of you to go to your house and do a speed test today. I live in Bixby, and I pay my cable provider, $150 a month for a gig service, and I did a speed test over the weekend, and I was getting 28 meg down and 6 meg up, right? So, and that's over a copper infrastructure. This is true fiber. I was actually, we left Shawnee and went up to Perry, and was talking to some folks and did a speed test. They're getting 970 meg down, upload and download, and so that's from a residential perspective. 2 gig residential 65, and then we do offer a 5 gig residential. We see that for remote users. There's a couple individuals that we work with, or graphic designers that work from home and have to upload documents. We actually were talking to an individual that was subscribing for the 5 gig, and he was an appraiser and had to upload appraisal. So large remote employee customers, 5 gig at your house, $100 a month. It's pretty incredible. From our commercial offering, we do start at 2 gig, 5 gig, and then 10 gig. And then the good thing about this is we could be like other fiber vendors that are popping up around the state or have been in the state for a number of years and just build fiber. We actually have a cable television offering which affords the city, should you choose to grant us a cable television franchise, where 5% of those revenues would actually be returned from the video services back to the city. We've seen an uptick in those. Happy to share city manager contact information with some of the other markets that we're building into, from folks coming off of a non-terrestrial, a cable, direct TV dish that don't pay franchise fees. When the storms roll through Oklahoma, we all know that those signals go out. What we've seen is a large uptick in folks getting off of those and using true fiber television. My mom was the first cable television provider or subscriber in the state of Oklahoma, and I can just attest that, having fiber video on a 4K TV it's kind of incredible. But we're seeing an uptick from that, from folks tired of it going out during storms and such. So we will be supplying a franchise for your review to consider, for a possible vote, and we'd love to be a part of the community. We anticipate a project like this, 3 to 5 years start to complete. We would get started likely, Q4 this year. We'll do some engineering work. We'll get things done. As you can see, we've done the initial mapping of the city. Here you go. 39,000 aerial distribution, or 39 miles of aerial distribution and 66 miles of underground construction. The green is underground and the blue is aerial. Like I said, about 10,700 homes. And as we've seen in other markets that are growing like Yukon, we would work hand in hand with city administration for additional subdivisions that are going in that are permitted, and we would work with those developers, and while the roads are being put in, we'll drop conduit in advance so we don't have to come and mess things up twice. So as the city has plans for expansion, there are some real life examples. In Perry, the community owned 128 acres on the south exit of Perry on I-35 that was undeveloped, that they've been trying to get developed there for a number of years. And we actually built there and put cable in a vault And lo and behold, they believe they've got a couple of individuals that are wanting to construct there because now there's broadband available, there's fiber available. I sit on the Blackwell Oklahoma Tops Commission for their industrial park. Was asked to sit on that, and they have a third party that's in South Carolina that's helping them write, the doc Insight, I think it's called, and they said you got electricity, sewer, water, gas, fiber. If you don't have those 5 things, you're not attracting any additional commerce, any additional industry, And I've heard that in other, Mr. Butler, who works with me, he's former House rep in the state of Oklahoma and the president of Southwestern University over in Weatherford. You hear that when we're in Oklahoma City a lot, that broadband fiber is as important as those other things now. I think the pandemic showed that. I think virtual learning, I think telehealth, I think all of those things has really brought it to a forefront for us. I know I was a little loose in that presentation, but hopefully you've got hard copies and we're able to flip through and follow along. But, and we had I wouldn't say ignored major Oklahoma City and Tulsa, but we had tiptoed away around them. And as we got so much success in more of the rural communities in the Stillwaters and Bartles, those aren't really rural, but you know what I mean, outside independent markets, we just kept getting calls from other municipalities to say, hey, why not here? And so we're actually visiting, we're on the Norman City Council meeting on the 28th to hopefully have a vote on the franchise there for Norman next week. Mr. Butler was in Moore, we're talking to Moore, Del City, Midwest City, El Reno, and yourselves, and would love for you guys to consider, that when the time's appropriate, but, mainly I wanted to do, we were asked to come here just as a study session to answer any questions that you guys would have. And with that, I think that covers the meat of this. We can dive into any of the additional details, but yeah, we're excited to be a part. I mean, as a native Oklahoman, myself and Randy, we intentionally chose to come in here and not make a big splash within the state of Oklahoma. But, when I take a step back and actually consider, a $400 million investment that's not natural, that's not in the energy sector and it's not in the agriculture sector, that makes me, a little proud. And when it's all said and done, I believe, we'll have provided broadband or fiber solution to about 750,000 people here in the state of Oklahoma, 750 to 1 million people after all the rooftops that we've touched. And so, yeah, it's pretty exciting what we're doing, and we'd love to have Yukon be a part of that excitement with us.
What about our residents who live in Yukon zip code, but they're not Yukon residents? They live right next door, like a half a street away in Oklahoma City.
Yes.
Are they going to be offered this too?
So what we would do in our franchise documentation, we actually outline 30 rooftops in a mile. We would consider building that. There's a number of places in Stillwater, Enid, Perry, other places that we're building in that have that same question. You got a subdivision that's right across the street. It all comes down to network design, and we're able to do that. Now, I will say, if it's in a different municipality, then I would have to go and approach that municipality to get a franchise agreement to offer them video service. We could build across the street and provide broadband, but then I'm gonna need a right-of-way permit with that municipality and work with that public works director. But if it's in Yukon proper, then we can solve it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and these are the people who are not Yukon proper.
Right.
And so they are Oklahoma City, so. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I think you may have answered this question with that answer, but in the northwest part of Yukon in particular, there's maybe 5 houses in a mile,
Right.
1 to 5 miles maybe. Is that feasible to bring fiber?
It's pretty tough. it's really tough. I tell you some statistics, and we actually have an application with the state of Oklahoma for some ARPA funds because other municipalities continue to call us. We try to stay with around a 50 feet per home model. Okay, so every 50 feet, 55 feet, you know, those are typical easements, 55 feet. That's kind of where we target. Grand Forks, North Dakota, 33 feet per home. Wyoming, 46 feet on average within those. The great state that we live in averages 102 feet. We like big lots and wide open spaces. The challenge with that is we have, Mears charges us by the foot to either bore or hang fiber. So it's just difficult. That's kind of one of the reasons why Yukon is you know, on our radar, because you're more dense compared to the Tonkawa and Choctaw and Hara, for example. You would think that Bartlesville, even Bartlesville, people would think, oh, well, but that would be a good market. Bartlesville, 86 feet per home. It actually costs us almost double to build out that municipality. And Choctaw, who would think Choctaw? 220 feet per home in Choctaw. To your point, I think that there are instances that we would consider, but it would just be a case by case. That make sense? I mean, it's hard. I can't,
Yeah.
you know, it's tough to pull that one off from an economics perspective.
Anybody else have questions?
On this map here,
Yes, sir.
what's the blue and the green? What's it represent?
The green is underground.
Underground.
So green for ground and blue for sky,
Very good.
and blue would be aerial.
Any other questions? All right, well, I thank you so much, and we'll be discussing this. and,
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, I appreciate you coming out and sharing that with us. If nobody else has any questions, then we thank you.
Okay, well, we'll just let us know, and we'd be happy to work through, you know, franchise and whatever you would like us to do next step, okay?
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, have a good evening. All right, we will dismiss and come back at 7 o'clock for our council meeting.